So as promised, let's return to all of this. The east coast of the US preparing for Hurricane Florence. Forecasters say it is the most powerful storm to threaten the Carolinas in nearly 3 decades. Let's talk now to Cheryl Nelson. She's a meteorologist and a natural disaster preparedness expert. She's in Norfolk, Virginia, and also from Wilmington in North Carolina, Kyle Stassen, who's a farmer, joins us also on the programme. Thank you so much for both of your time. Kyle, I'll start with you first of all. You haven't left yet. Tell me a little more about your circumstances, what you grow, what you're planning to do.
So we grow about an acre of vegetables and mixed livestock. So we have hogs and chickens for meat and eggs. And we haven't left because there's 2 threats. Number one is if we do leave, there's the possibility it's going to be very hard to get back. And I have a lot of liabilities here that need to be taken care of in the event we do have a lot of damage. I've got freezers full of frozen product and coolers full of produce that I've tried to harvest before the storm. And so I've got to crank up my generators and start removing debris from the field and just try to get back up on our feet as soon as possible, because all of these things, our animals, our vegetables, are so important to the economy of our family's livelihood. So,
and just briefly, how much of a dilemma is it thinking about keeping yourself safe, your family safe, and basically your livelihood, even your home? I gather you live on a mobile home there on the land.
We do. We live in a mobile home, and so my family and I, we're not going to stay in the mobile home. We're going to go to my in-laws' house, so my wife's parents, and it's my wife and I and our 3 children. And that's in an area that's far enough away from the coast, the ocean. It's about 5 minutes from here, but it's high enough sea level that in the event of a massive storm surge, we would be safe there. So yeah, we're definitely not going to stay in our home, though.
I'll be back to you in a moment. Cheryl, let me bring you in. Is this storm still gaining strength and power?
So this storm is still moving to the west-northwest right now, and it is a powerful Category 4 storm with winds of 130 miles an hour. Now, it may weaken a smidge, but it is still expected to be a major hurricane at landfall. And I don't want people to focus so much on the wind speed or the category of the storm, because honestly, water is the biggest killer when it comes to tropical systems. So that storm surge, that's going to move in. But I also have to point out too, that the rainfall is going to be torrential and it's going to be prolonged. So even if you think you're safe in an area from storm surge, some areas could get isolated amounts of 30, even 40 inches of rain. And to put that in perspective, that is close to what an area like this would almost pick up in one entire year. So imagine having that all at once.
And you also advise people on disaster preparedness. I mean, what basic advice are you giving people?
I'm saying if you are in a low-lying area, if you are in an area where you are told to evacuate, please evacuate and know where to go. Don't wait until the last minute and start scrambling and then get caught up in the water. That's what happens to a lot of people. That's where a lot of these fatalities happen, when they don't leave soon enough. And if you are going to stay, make sure you're able to take care of yourself and your family. You need disaster supplies, the basics for survival. Food and water, non-perishable food for up to 72 hours at a minimum, and then for a maximum of potentially 2 weeks, because there will be power outages. Some areas will likely never be the same along the North Carolina coast, and you cannot rely on people to come to your aid to help you if you are in an area where you are told to evacuate. First responders will not be able to get to you. You have to rely on yourself and your family, and your neighbors may end up being your first responders.
I'll come back to that point because it's a very important one. You mentioned food and supplies and water, and you look at the shelves now in the shops and they are totally bare in some of these towns in advance of this exodus. Let me go back to Carl, because you talked about going to your in-laws. I mean, how long do you anticipate being away for? How long can you afford to be away for your crops?
I can only afford to be away for about a day and a half. See, one of my strategies is to cover some of my crops with a big tarp and weigh it down with as much weight as I can to prevent the wind from destroying them. And then in the event that actually works, then I'll have to come back as soon as possible to take that tarp off. and there's a lot of things that I can only do at the last minute. For instance, securing down where my animals are going to be, because they do, they defecate where they're going to be for a while. I can't have them in one place for more than about 3 days, or else it gets pretty nasty in there. So I need to get back quick. I need to leave quick.
Let me just ask you a very quick final question each. Carl, first of all, I mean, if all of your crops and other farmers, all of their crops get destroyed, I mean, how much of an impact does that have on you? Do you have things like insurance for these sorts of basic things?
I don't have insurance for these basic things. A lot of times with a small scale producer like myself, insurance is more costly than it is beneficial. And then we just rely on our community. We can get more crops back in the ground pretty quickly and have people come out and support us, because we live on the community support, and we don't think that they'll stop supporting us in the event of a disaster.
Cheryl, a quick final thought to you, because you talked about help support. We have almost hourly briefings from FEMA and other agencies. Is most of that help, does that come after an event like this, or is it already being put into place?
I've heard that in some areas they are distributing some water and some food already, but really it comes after the fact. And I gotta say, people think they can come back home immediately following a storm, but if you get 20, 30, 40 inches of rain, you're not going to be able to go anywhere for a very long time. Look at what happened with Hurricane Harvey in Houston, and my heart goes out to everybody along the immediate Carolina coastline and inland flooding as well. And Carl, I wish you all the best too.
Well, Cheryl Nelson and Carl Stellington, thanks so much for taking time to speak to us, and good luck in the hours ahead. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.